Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to bring you a battle between the 2021 Challenger decks and the Face the Hydra Challenge deck from Theros. Here we have the Azorius control deck. We have Dimir Rogues there, Mono Green Stompy there, and Mono Red Aggro there. We'll be playing 2 games, first on normal difficulty with 3 Hydra heads, and then we'll be playing on hard mode. And for these games, we'll be using 2 hero cards. The first one we have is the Harvester. It says tap, draw a card, then discard a card. And we also have the Warrior, which says tap, target creature you control gains haste until end of turn. Because I only have 1 copy of each of these cards, I'm going to be using them for all 4 decks simultaneously. We'll go ahead and get started by drawing our opening hands. Control draws a Doomscar, Plains, Birth of Meletus, Glass Casket, Behold the Multiverse, Shadow of the Sky, and Elspeth Conquers Death. This has only 1 land, which is not really playable, and so we're going to mulligan. Now we have Archon of Sun's Grace, Omen of the Sea, Saw It Coming, Banishing Light, Omen of the Sea, and Skyclave Cleric / Skyclave Basilica. Again, a 1-lander is not going to do. Because this is multiplayer, we will get a free mulligan, but we are going to go down to 6 now. Now we have a Neutralize, Skyclave Cleric, Plains, Island, Archon of Sun's Grace, Island, and Neutralize. This is not an amazing hand, but I think we can keep it. And so, since we are going to go down, we'll take the Plains and stick it on the bottom. Rogues draws Zerasan the Trickster, Dismal Backwater, Thieves Guild Enforcer, Swamp, Eliminate, Soaring Thought Thief, and Island. I think this is a reasonable opening hand, so we'll keep it. Stompy draws a Snakeskin Veil, Swarm Shambler, Kazandu Mammoth, Yorvo Lord of Garenberg, Forest, Sir Farron the Hengehammer, and Primal Might. I don't really want to keep a 2-lander without some kind of ramp involved, but I think I'm going to have to because it's still a fairly functional hand. Aggro draws a Fervent Champion, Akum Hellhound, Torbrand Thane of Redfell, Mountain, Kargan Intimidator, Mountain, and Rimrock Knight. It's not an amazing hand, but I think we can make this one work, so we'll keep it. Because this is multiplayer, we're going to draw on our first turn, and so Azorius draws another Neutralize. Rogues draws a Merfolk Windrobber. Stompy draws a Forest. Aggro draws a Rimrock Knight. Control will play the Skyclave Basilica. This is a land. It enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap it to add white. Rogues will play a Swamp. Stompy will play the Forest. They'll tap the Forest and cast a Swarm Shambler. This is a 0/0 Fungus Beast. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, and whenever creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes a target of a spell and opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. Pay 1 and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Aggro plays a Mountain. We'll tap it and we'll cast the Akum Hellhound. This is a 0/1 elemental dog with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. We're going to go to the Hydra's first turn. Hydra will cast a Swallow the Hero Whole. Each player exiles a creature he or she controls until the Hydra's next turn. When a head leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the battlefield under their owner's control. This will exile the Akum Hellhound and the Swarm Shambler. And then each player will take 3 damage from the Hydra heads and go down to 17. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Control draws a Saw It Coming, and we will discard the Saw It Coming. Rogues draws a Heartless Act, and we will discard the Zerasan. We'll also tap the Swamp and cast the Thieves Guild Enforcer. This is a 1/1 human rogue with flash, and when it or another rogue enters the battlefield, under your control, each opponent mills 2 cards. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, it gets +2/+1 and has Death Touch. The Hydra will mill 2. We mill a Hydra Head and a Disorienting Glower. Stompy draws a Forest, and we will discard the Snakeskin Veil. Aggro draws a Shock, and we'll discard the Shock. We'll untap. Control draws a Temple of Enlightenment. Rogues draws a Drown in the Loch. Stompy draws a Forest. Aggro draws a Bone Crusher Giant. Control is not doing much. We'll play the Temple of Enlightenment. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 1. You can tap it for white or blue. We'll scry and put the Birth of Meletus right back on top. Rogues will play the island. Stompy will play the forest. We'll tap both and cast Surferin the Hengehammer. It's a 2/2 legendary human knight. And whenever it attacks, another target creature gets +X on the end of turn, where X is Surferin's power. Aggro will play a mountain. We'll tap both of these and cast the Kargan Intimidator. This 3/1 human warrior. Cowards can't block warriors, and for 1, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn, and target warrior gains trample until end of turn. Rogues will tap both of these and cast a Soaring Thought Thief. This is a 1/3 human rogue with flash and flying, and as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0, and whenever 1 or more rogues you control attack, each opponent mills 2 cards. We'll tap the warrior to give the Thought Thief, Surferin, and the Intimidator haste. The Enforcer will attack one of the Hydra heads. Surferin will attack that same Hydra head. The Intimidator will attack a different Hydra head. We'll have a double mill from the Soaring Thought Thief triggering, milling a Ravenous Brute head and a Torn Between heads. And then on the attack trigger, we'll also mill the Hydra head and a Distract the Hydra. We'll lose 2 more heads. Each player will gain 4 life to go up to 21. We'll review 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. We have a Snapping Fang head. This is 0/8 Elite head. At the beginning of the Hydra's end step, it deals 1 damage to each player, and when it leaves the battlefield, each player gains 4 life and draws a card. We also have another Hydra head. This is 0/3 head, and when it leaves the battlefield, each player gains 2 life. Then the Swallow the Hero Hole effect will untrigger. Aggro regains their Hellhound. Stompy regains their Shambler. Then we go to the Hydra's turn. The Hydra will cast Disorienting Glower. Players can't cast spells until the Hydra's next turn. We should also note that there are enough cards to trigger both of the threshold effects on the Hydra's graveyard for the rogues. The Hydra will deal 5 damage to each player, taking them down to 16 each. And then we'll use the Harvester at the end of the turn. Control draws the Birth of Meletis and will discard 1 Neutralize. Rogues draws a Nighthawk Scavenger and we will discard a Heartless Act. Stompy draws a Forest and will discard a Forest. Aggro draws a Torbrand and will discard the extra Torbrand. Players in tap. Control draws an Elspeth Conquers Death. Rogues draws an Island. Stompy draws a Wildborn Preserver. Aggro draws a Shock. Control will play the Island. Rogues will play the Dismal Backwater. It's a land, it enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life, and you can tap it for blue or black. We can only have to go back up to 17. Stompy plays a Forest. We'll go to combat. The Thieves Guild Enforcer now has Death Touch, and so we'll swing at the Snapping Fang head with it. The Soaring Thought Thief will also attack one of the Hydra heads. Surferin will attack the same head that the Soaring Thought Thief is attacking. And the Kargan Intimidator will attack the remaining head. On the attack trigger, the Hydra will mill 2 cards. The first is a Nectangle, and then we have a Distract the Hydra. And then this will defeat all 3 heads. We'll gain 8 life apiece to go to 24 for these 3, and rogues will go to 25. We'll reveal 6 cards to see if there are any new heads. There's 1 new head, which is a Ravenous Brute head. This is 0/6 Elite head, and when it leaves the battlefield, each player gains 2 life and draws a card. We'll also draw a card each. Control draws a Plains. Rogues draws a Swamp. Stompy draws Yorvo. Aggro draws a Spikefield Hazard. We can't cast anything, but we will play the Spikefield Cave. This is a land and it's a battlefield tapped, and you can tap it for red. So trigger the Akum Hellhound, making it a 2/3. And then we'll pass the turn to the Hydra. The Hydra casts Unified Lunge. It deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of heads on the battlefield. So we'll be taking a total of 3 damage from the Hydra this turn, taking these 3 down to 21 and rogues down to 22. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Control draws a Plains, and we will discard the Birth of Meletis. Rogues draws a Soaring Thought Thief, and we will discard the Eliminate. We'll also tap the Swamp and the Island to play another Soaring Thought Thief. This triggers the Enforcer's Mill effect. The Hydra will mill a Nectangle and a Hydra's impenetrable hide. Stompy will tap 2 to cast a Wildborn Preserver. This is a 2/2 elf archer with flash and reach. And whenever another non-human creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay X, and when you do, put X +1/+1 counters on Wildborn Preserver. We'll also tap 1 to give a counter to the Storm Shambler. Stompy will also draw a Turn Timber Symbiosis, and we'll discard one of the Orvos. Aggro draws an Akum Hellhound and will discard the Shock. Control will spend 2 and cycle the Neutralize. This is an instant counter target spell. You can cycle it for 2. We'll draw a Tranquil Cove. Then we'll untap. Control draws a Thirst Remaining. Rogues draws a Swamp. Stompy draws a Forest. Aggro draws a Fervent Champion. Control will play a Plains. Rogues will play a Swamp. Stompy will play a Forest. We're going to go to combat and attack with just the Thieves Guild Enforcer because it has Death Touch. This will trigger the mill effect. Hydra mills a Distract the Hydra and a Unified Lunge. This will also defeat the Ravenous Brute head and will reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There is a Shrieking Titan head. This is a 0/8 Elite head. At the beginning of the Hydra's end step, each player discards a card, and when it leaves the battlefield, each player gains 4 life and draws a card. Each player will gain 2 life. These 3 will go up to 23, and that will go up to 24. I don't like the card disadvantage that the Shrieking Titan head will cause, and so we will tap 2 mana and cast Drown in the Lock. It is an instant. It says choose one, counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in the controller's graveyard, or destroy a target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. We'll choose to destroy. The Shrieking Titan head dies. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads, and there are new heads, so we don't have to trigger anything else. And the Challenger decks 2021 have defeated the Hydra on normal difficulty. We'll be right back for hard mode. Alright, we are back for hard mode. We have 4 Hydra heads assembled here, and we'll be playing as usual. Control draws a Plains, Temple of Enlightenment, Neutralize, Plains, Sod Coming, Omen of the Sea, and Dream Trawler. It's not an amazing hand, but with the omens and the counter spells can kind of make this work. Rogues draws a Swamp, Island, Temple of Deceit, Drown in the Lock, Island, Dismal Backwater, and Drown in the Lock. I don't think that there's enough going on in terms of rogue stuff to keep this, so we're going to mulligan using a free mulligan. And we have a Swamp, Island, Swamp, Eliminate, Island, Soaring Thought Thief, and Swamp. It's not a great hand, but the Soaring Thought Thief I think is enough to let us keep this one. Stompy draws a Kazandu Mammoth, Primal Might, Ram Through, Forest, Snakeskin Veil, Ram Through, and Forest. It's a little bit slow, but I guess we can keep this off the Kazandu Mammoth. Aggro draws a Fervent Champion, Bone Crusher Giant, Bone Crusher Giant, Mountain, Torbrand, Shock, and Shatterskull Smashing. I don't love this with 2 lands, but I think we're going to have to keep it. We'll draw our opening card. Control draws a Doomscar. Rogues draws an Island. Stompy draws a Wildbird Tracker. Aggro draws a Kargan Intimidator. Control will play the Temple of Enlightenment. We'll scry the Temple of Enlightenment to the top. Rogues plays the Swamp. Stompy will play the Forest and then tap it to play a Wildblood Tracker. This is a 1/1 Elf Warrior, and whenever it attacks or blocks, if you control another non-human creature, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Aggro will play a Mountain, tap it, and cast the Fervent Champion. This is a 1/1 Human Knight with First Strike and Haste, and whenever it attacks, another target attacking knight you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and equip abilities to activate. The target it costs 3 less to activate. We don't have enough damage to defeat any of the heads, so we're going to pass to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast a Snapping Fang head. We've seen this before. We'll take 7 damage each to go to 13 apiece. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Control draws a Temple of Enlightenment, and we will discard the Dream Trawler. Rogues draws a Nighthawk Scavenger, and will discard an Island. Stompy draws a Wildwood Tracker, and will discard the Snakeskin Veil. Aggro draws a Royal Eruption, and we will discard the Shock. We'll untap. Control draws an Elspeth Conquers Death. Rogues draws a Dismal Backwater. Stompy draws a Stonecoil Serpent. Aggro draws a Fervent Champion. We'll play another Temple of Enlightenment here. We'll scry the other Temple of Enlightenment to the bottom. Rogues will play an island. We'll tap both of these and cast a Soaring Thought Thief. Stompy will play the Kazandu Valley. It's a land, it enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap for green. We'll tap the force and also play another Wildwood Tracker. Aggro will play Shatterskull the Hammer Pass. This is a land. As it enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. We'll pay 3 life and go down to 10. We'll tap both of these and cast a Kargan Intimidator. We'll use the Warrior to give each of the new creatures haste. We'll swing the Soaring Thought Thief into 1 Hydra Head. Both Wildwood Trackers will attack 2 different Hydra Heads, one of which is shared with the Soaring Thought Thief. This will trigger their +1/+1s because there are additional non-human creatures. The Intimidator will attack a 3rd Hydra Head while the Champion will attack 1 of the Tracker's heads. This will defeat 3 heads and will mill 2 additional cards off the Soaring Thought Thief. We mill a Swallow the Hero whole and a Ravenous Brute Head. We'll gain 6 life apiece. We'll reveal 6 cards to see if there are any new heads. There's a Ravenous Brute Head and a Hydra Head. And then we'll gain 6 life apiece to go up to 19, except for Aggro, who will go up to 16. Then we'll pass the turn to the Hydra. The Hydra casts a Hydra Head. We'll take 8 damage apiece to go down to 11, except for Aggro, which will go down to 8. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Control draws a Neutralize, and we will discard the Elspeth Conqueror's Death. Rogues draws a Black Bloom Rogue, and we will discard the Dismal Backwater. Stompy draws a Surferin, and we'll discard a Ram Through. Aggro draws a Shock, and we'll discard the Shock. We untap. Control draws a Temple of Enlightenment. Rogues draws Zerasan the Trickster. Stompy draws a Lovestruck Beast. Aggro draws a Spikefield Hazard. Control will play Plains and hold up Counterspell. Rogues will play the Swamp and will tap out to cast a Nighthawk Scavenger. This is a 1+3 Vampire Rogue with Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink, and its power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. There are only 2 types, so it has 3 power right now. Stompy will play the Forest, we'll tap out. We'll cast a Lovestruck Beast. This is a 5/5 Beast Noble. It can't attack unless you control a 1/1 creature. We happen to control 2. Aggro will play a Spikefield Cave. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap for red. We'll also tap a Mountain and play another Fervent Champion. We'll tap the Warrior to give all the new creatures haste. We'll attack the Nighthawk Scavenger with its Death Touch into the Snapping Fang Head. We'll run the Soaring Thought Thief into the Ravaging Brute Head. The Lovestruck Beast will join the Soaring Thought Thief. The Wildwood Trackers will attack 1 of the Hydra Heads. They'll trigger, getting +1/+1, and then the Kargan Intimidator will attack a 2nd Hydra Head, and the Fervent Champions will attack, giving each other +1/+0, and attack a 3rd Hydra Head. This will defeat all the heads. Before this, we trigger the mill effect of the Rogues. We mill a Strike the Weak Spot and a Hydra Head. Then we'll reveal 10 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads, so we don't need to do anything else, as the Challenger decks defeat the Hydra on hard mode with some relative ease. Let me know what you thought about these games in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.